I'm back with another video, and for today's video, I'm gonna be talking to you about a few specifications that you might come across when canvassing for your first mirrorless camera. I would like you to be more intentional with your purchase. Our phones nowadays have good quality cameras, but if you want more control over your settings, then probably getting a camera would be actually nice. You don't really need the newest one. You just need the one best suitable for you. This video might be of help. Just a bit. Do you really want to explore more of the settings for photography, or are you gonna use this for video, where you're gonna post these? How serious are you in photography? What are you actually gonna use the camera for? Assess that, and if you decide that you're pushing through with your first mirrorless camera, then keep on watching. I'm so excited for you. How much do you want to spend on a camera? You can buy your first camera used. As long as the shutter count is still low and it's in good condition, then I don't think buying something used would be an issue. However, I do recommend you get your cameras from an authorized reseller so that you can avail of the warranty and you'll be more secure with your purchase. The higher megapixel count you have, the bigger your image would be. It only matters in two scenarios. One is if you're cropping to zoom, and two is if you're shooting for large print photos. That's it. The higher megapixel count you have, the better the resolution of your photo stays when you crop to zoom. For example, you do not have a zoom lens, and this would be the full photo, but you want to zoom. Don't scale that photo up. You crop that image to zoom in. So that's where the higher megapixel count counts. If you're also shooting for large print, then a higher megapixel count also matters. My Fujifilm XT10 has a 16 megapixel resolution, and that's more than enough for me. I think the latest cameras now have like a 24 or something. Larger image does not necessarily mean that you have better image quality. What really controls that is your sensor. Rule of thumb with sensors is the bigger your sensors are, the better your depth control is, the less noise you get, the more light that will come into your camera. So the most common sensor for mirrorless cameras is the APS-C sensor. The Fujifilm XT10 also has an APS-C sensor. So what APS-C sensors indicate is that it crops the image at a certain crop factor. My Fujifilm XT10 has a crop factor of 1.5, and so if I have a 35mm focal length lens on it, 35 times 1.5, then you get an effective focal length of 52.5. As opposed to a full frame camera, if you have a 35mm lens on, then your effective focal length is 35mm. Also, full frame, you get more depth control, you get less noise, and you let more light in. So those are the three things that a bigger sensor can do. Full frame cameras are super expensive. And another thing is to consider if you want a Bayer sensor or an X-Trans sensor. The Fujifilm cameras have an X-Trans sensor, but not all of the Fujifilm cameras have X-Trans sensors. Most of the cameras have Bayer sensors anyway. But for the Fujifilm XT10, for example, you have the X-Trans 2 sensor. And I'd have another video explaining the difference between X-Trans and Bayer sensor. But for now, what those different sensors do is they render color differently. Sensor also dictates the color science of your image. Just depends on your color preference. For example, I've been noticing that my Canon EOS M50, which has a Bayer sensor, registers more cyan, and the Fujifilm XT10 registers a bit more of a green tint. It's a matter of preference. Okay, if you want to shoot a lot of people in motion, sports, or something like that, then you might want to consider something with a higher frame per second. The Fujifilm XT10 has until 8 frames per second continuous shooting. It's basically the speed at which the shutter closes and captures image. So the faster and the higher the number is, the more shots you get at a second. You might want to also consider how good the autofocus is. Test it out in store first before you actually buy it. You may also come across ISO range if you want to shoot in badly lit environments like gigs or something like that in bars. Then maybe you should consider something with a higher ISO range. So, image stabilization. The Fujifilm XT10 does not have in-body image stabilization. I think only the lens has image stabilization, but the body of the Fujifilm XT10 does not. I do have a lot of shaky footage, but I really don't mind. I think it works. But where the image stabilization would come in handy for photographs is when you want to shoot at a slower shutter speed. You get less shake with in-body image stabilization. If you're gonna use your camera for video, then you might want to consider your video frame rate. 30 is good for sit-down videos. I think even 15 is good for sit-down videos, but for stuff that you would want to slow down in the future, I think 60 frames per second is a good video frame rate. The Fujifilm XT10 also has 60 frames per second frame rate for video. Video resolution is also one thing you want to consider. So some cameras shoot 4K in 720p like the Canon EOS M50, but I really opt to just do 60 frames per second at 1080p, and that's like enough for YouTube. My intent with the Fujifilm XT10 is just the small screens, phones, and computer. You would want to consider the file format also. You have to make sure that whatever camera you're buying, it's better if it supports RAW, because you can tweak your images better, especially if you're into like learning how to post-process images. RAW is the way to go because it offers full access of what the camera captured. JPEG is a more compressed file format, so you might not be able to pull out a lot of details from that. So you have to make sure that your camera supports that, okay? Shoot RAW. Other things you might want to consider is if you want to connect your camera to your phone by Bluetooth, by Wi-Fi, or NFC, check if your camera supports that. It's just easy file transfer, especially if you want to post it on social media immediately. Also, because phones now have Lightroom Mobile, so that's something they can use. You want to also consider whether the camera has weatherproofing or not. The XT10 sadly is not weather sealed, but I've been able to take this out on a lot of beach trips and it survived. One of the most important things actually when buying a camera is considering the form factor. So you need to know whether or not you need a flip screen, or just an articulating screen, need dials, hot shoe, tripod, mic, HDMI, USB. Do you need a bigger grip? Then that's up to you. Form factor plays a big role in shooting comfortably, so it's best if you can try to handle these cameras before you go and buy them. Okay, so that is it. Those are the essentials. I hope this gave you insights on looking at the specifications of the camera you're about to buy. Let me know in the comment section what camera did you end up buying. I try to keep it short. I really try to keep it short. So I may or may not have missed details, but check the description box. I usually write everything I think I missed on the description box. If you want to discuss further, then please comment down below. I would love to hear from you guys. I hope this also gave you an insight on the XT10. This is still my go-to camera for photography. I did purchase an EOS M50 for video, and the unboxing is right here. You can click that if you want to check that out. And yeah, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.